Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you very much for watching this video. In this video, I would like to discuss about how we can go about finding the quotient or the answer to a division problem where the division problem involves decimal numbers. Okay, so as you can see, we've already got a question up on the screen, 45 divided by 0.9, and let's try to find the quotient of this number sentence. Okay, well, what do we have to do first, or what could we do first? Well, I'm assuming that a lot of students will agree to this, but right now maybe this number sentence doesn't look so good to us because it's got a decimal number in it. Okay, and maybe a lot of us would feel much more comfortable working with this division problem if both the dividend and the divisor were whole numbers. Okay, and so just like we did when we were trying to solve multiplication problems which involved decimal numbers, maybe the first thing we want to do is try and change this decimal number here, 0.9, into a whole number so that both the dividend and the divisor are whole numbers. Well, could we do that? Well, the answer is yes. Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we could multiply 0.9 by 10 because, as we discussed in Unit 1, when we multiply a number by 10, the decimal point moves one place to the right, right? So in this case, when we multiply 10 to 0.9, the decimal place moves to the right one place, making or changing the number to 9, which is a whole number. Okay. Now, when we looked at multiplication problems, which involves decimal numbers, we didn't have to, for example, in this case, if we multiplied 10 to the divisor, right, or sorry, if we're talking about multiplication, if we multiplied 10 to the multiplier, okay, it wasn't necessary for us to also multiply 10 or the same number to the multiplicand, right? However, with division problems, it's slightly different, right? Because the rule of division says, okay, and we talked about this in class, but the rule of division says that if you multiply or divide, okay, one of the divisor or dividend by a number, okay, in order to keep the same quotient, in order to make sure the quotient stays the same, you also need to do the same to the other number, so whether that's the dividend or the divisor. Therefore, if we just multiply 10 to 0.9 and change this original number sentence to 45 divided by 9, well, the answer, that quotient, will not be the same quotient as the quotient to 45 divided by 0.9, right? Which is not really helping us in any way. Okay, so if we really want to simply make this number sentence simpler for us to work with, okay, then we do have to also multiply 45 by 10 so that we're not changing, so that we're not completely changing this original number sentence into something totally different. So 45 times 10, what's that? Well, 450, right? So now we have a division number sentence, 450 divided by 9. And probably more students would feel or would think that this number sentence is much more easier to solve and work with compared to this number sentence here. The reason being because we got rid of the decimal number, and we now have two whole numbers involved. Okay, and again, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but it is important to understand that the quotient, the answer to this number sentence is going to be the same as the quotient to this number sentence, because we followed the rule of division and we multiplied both the divisor and the dividend by the same number. Okay, so next, probably what a lot of people will do here is maybe convert this or rewrite this or change this number sentence into vertical form. Okay, and if we do that, we're going to get something that looks like that, right? Okay, well, then we're going to be asking some questions to ourselves, and then going through the process of solving this and finding the quotient. And the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, all right, well, how many 9s are going to be able to fit into 4? Okay, so how many times can 4 be completely divided by 9? Okay, well, the answer is 0 times, right? 4 cannot be divided by 9, into complete parts. Okay, so I put a 0 there. So we have 0 9s, which is 0. Yep. And then we subtract 0 from 4. Okay. And then we end up with 4. Then we can bring down this 5. Then we bring down this 5. And now we have 45. Now, into how many equal parts can 45 be divided by 9? Well, 45 can be divided by 9. 45 can be divided into 9 parts. Into 9 5 times. Okay, so we write the 5 there. Okay, well, 5 sets of 9 is 45. And if we take away 45 from 45, we get a 0. Okay, but we're not done yet, right? Because there is another digit here. Okay, and we can't ignore that digit. It's really important, right? So we have to bring down that 0. Okay, well, there's nothing left, right, technically. Okay, so if there's nothing, we can't divide nothing by 9. Okay, so we write 0 up here, and then 0 times 9 is 0. We take away 0 by 0, and then now we've completely completed the long division process. Okay, so if we look at this number here at the very top, that's our quotient, right? That's the, that number tells us into how many groups of 9 we can divide 450 into. Well, the answer is this number up here. Okay, and what we could do is we could kind of cross out, ignore, or get rid of the first 0 or the 0 on the very left, because that's basically telling us that there's no value to that. Okay, so then if we look at our quotient, we can see that the quotient is 50. So 450 divided by 9 gives us 50. Now, remember, our original number sentence was not 450 divided by 9. It was 45 divided by 0.9. However, because we followed, okay, the division rule, when we changed the number sentence into something more easier for us to work with, okay, the quotient is not going to be any different. So the quotient to this original number sentence is going to be the same as this number sentence. Therefore, we know that 45 divided by 0.9 is also 50. Okay, so this is one way, which you could go about finding the quotient of a division problem that involves decimal numbers. Okay, now, so 45 divided by 0.9 also equals 50. Okay, well, let's take a look at another problem here. Okay, this one's going to be slightly different, okay, to the one we just looked at, and I might just, wait, I'll just let you kind of see for yourself how this question, or how solving the process of solving this question is slightly different to the process which we went through to solve the previous question. Okay, so now we have 35 divided by 0.9, and basically, we can do the exact same thing we did as the previous question to try and solve this number sentence. Okay, so again, we see a decimal point, a decimal number for the divisor, and just to make this question easier for us to work with, okay, we could multiply that by 10, change it into a 4, which is a whole number, okay, so that we got rid of a decimal number. But because we divided the divisor, because we multiplied the divisor by 10, we also have to do the same to the dividend, right? So that the quotient of our new number sentence and the original number sentence is going to be the same. So I also have to multiply 35 by 10, which will give us, which would be 350. So we can do 350 divided by 4 to try and find out the quotient to 35 divided by 0.4. Okay. Now, just like we did with the previous question, I might rewrite this number sentence into vertical form. Okay. And then I'm going to be asking the same kind of questions to myself in order to try and find out the quotient to this problem. So I'm going to be focusing on this number first, okay? So 3. And I'm going to ask myself, well, how many times can 4 go into 3? Okay? Or, into how many equal parts can I divide 3 by 4? Okay, well, the answer is 0. Yep, I can't. Okay, I can't even equally divide 3 into 4 one time, right? So it's got to be less than 1, and so it's 0. Okay, for now, like when we're talking about whole numbers. So 0 set of 4 will give us 0. Okay, and 3 minus 0 is 3. Okay, then we bring down this 5 and we have 35. Then I'll be asking myself, well, how many times can 4 go into 35? Okay, well, 35, into how many whole parts can I divide 35 by 4? And the answer is, well, at least I can, not at least, at most, I can have 8 whole parts. Okay? I can't have 9, but I can definitely have 8, right? So, then I do 8 sets of 4. 8 times 4 is 32. And I subtract 32 from 35, and I'm left with 3. Okay, then I bring down this 0 and I get 30. Okay, then I ask myself, well, how many times can 4 go into 30? Well, at most it can go into 37 times. Okay, because 7 sets of 4 is 28, and that's the maximum groups of 4s I can make with 30. Okay, then I subtract 28 from 30, and then I'm left with 2. Now, I don't really have any more numbers here, okay, when we look at the dividend. Okay, so there's no number right now that I can actually bring down to continue my long division process. Okay, so maybe one choice I have here is just use this number 2. Sorry, just use this number 2 as a remainder. Okay, however, there is actually a way for me to continue this long division process. Okay, can you think of a way to continue this long division process? Okay, well, I guess the simplest thing we could do is by doing that. Now, why? Can we even do that? Is that okay, or is that cheating? Well, think about it. Okay, compare this dividend, okay, with that dividend. Did we actually change the number? Is the number different now? So here, the dividend is 350. And then now, we're just kind of changing it to 350.0. Did we change the value of the dividend? And I think you'd be saying, no, we didn't. And you're correct. We did not change the value of the dividend. Therefore, we didn't, we're just adding the 0.0, but we're not changing the value of the dividend. So this should be totally acceptable, right? Now, also by doing this, by adding the 0.0, now we have some more numbers that can help us continue this long division process, right? Now we have a number which we can bring down so that we can continue this long division process. So this is, totally acceptable. This is totally fair. It's not cheating. And, this is a great way to continue the long division process rather than just considering any number we have as a remainder. Okay. However, one very important thing when we add this 0.0 is that when we add this decimal point here, we also need to add another right on top of it in our quotient. Okay. This is a really, really, really important step. Okay. So let's not forget to do this. Okay. I can see this being a very popular, careless sort of mistake. So let's make sure that we don't forget to add the decimal point in the quotient as well when we add a decimal point and a 0 in the dividend to continue the long division process. Okay. So after we've finished until there, okay, now we can bring down this 0 to continue the long division process. So now we have 20. And then I ask myself, well, how many 4s can fit into 20? Okay, or 20 can be divided into 4 equally how many times? Okay, and 20 can be divided by 4, completely, okay, by 5, right? And 5 times 4 is 20. So when we subtract 20 from 20, we get, or we're left with 0. So we have completed the long division process. Okay, and if we look at the quotient, and just like with the previous question, we can kind of cross out or ignore or get rid of the most left 0. Okay, because basically that's saying that there's 0 hundreds. Okay, so then we can see that the quotient is 87.5. Okay, And because we followed the division rule at the beginning, when we kind of rewrote the division number sentence into something more convenient and easy for us, okay, we could make a conclusion that 85 divided by 0.4, which was our original number sentence, is also equal to 87.5. Okay, and I didn't do this with the previous question, but I might just show you that, you know, our process is correct. Okay, and let me push 35 divided by 0.4, and that should be 87.5, right? That should be. Well, let's check. Equals, haha, 87.5. So, you know, hopefully you're convinced that this way does work. And again, the key is that we follow the rule of division. Okay, we must remember to, if we multiply or divide the divisor or the dividend, okay, to make it, to change it into a more, you know, simpler or more convenient number to ourselves, we must do the same to the other number in the number sentence. Okay, and if you ever come across a situation where you need to, or when you're trying to continue a long division process, but you know you're out of numbers, I guess, with the dividend, okay, you can always extend the dividend by adding 0.0, and you know you can write as many zeros as you want. Okay, because remember, we're not changing the value, so we're technically not changing the number. Okay, and then that way you can continue the long division process. And the last thing that I want you guys to make sure and be careful about is when you add this 0.0 to the dividend, okay, make sure you also add the decimal point in your quotient as well. Okay. So in this video, basically, I wanted to talk about, you know, how we can go about solving division problems, which involves decimal numbers. And I hope you found this video helpful and useful. Okay. If you have any questions, as I always say, please come and talk to your teachers, and we would be happy to explain things again, or you know, help you guys out anytime. Okay? Well, thank you again for watching this video. Bye-bye.